My name is Jessica Martinez, and I'm 22 years old. I work at a Walmart supercenter in Bakersfield, California, right off Highway 99. The store sits in a sprawling commercial district that becomes eerily quiet after midnight, surrounded by empty parking lots and closed fast food restaurants. I'd been working there for about 8 months when this happened, mostly doing overnight inventory and restocking. The pay wasn't great, but it helped me get through community college. That particular night in October, I was scheduled for the 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. shift, one of only 4 employees in the massive store. The evening started normally enough. I clocked in and headed to the electronics section to organize the video game display cases. The store had this haunting quality at night, fluorescent lights humming overhead, casting long shadows down empty aisles that seemed to stretch forever. I usually wore earbuds to combat the unsettling silence, but management had cracked down on that recently. Around midnight, I noticed a woman browsing the cell phone accessories. She was probably in her 50s, wearing a faded denim jacket and jeans that looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks. Her gray hair hung in greasy strands around her face, and she kept muttering to herself while examining phone cases. When she approached me, I caught a whiff of something sour, like milk left out in the sun. She asked about unlocking phones, speaking in this strange, sing-song voice that made my skin crawl. I explained that we didn't provide that service and directed her to the customer service desk, though I knew it was closed. She smiled then, revealing yellowed teeth with several gaps, and said, "You're such a helpful little bird. So helpful." The way she emphasized little bird made me uncomfortable, but I just nodded and went back to my work. By 1:30 a.m., the store felt like a tomb. I was restocking batteries when I saw her again, standing at the end of the aisle just watching me. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. Instead, she tilted her head and gave me that same unsettling smile. I moved to the toy section, hoping to avoid another encounter. As I arranged action figures on shelves, I kept glancing over my shoulder. The woman appeared at the end of different aisles, always watching, never shopping. She'd stand there for minutes at a time, swaying slightly, like she was listening to music only she could hear. When I went to the break room around 2:15 a.m., I mentioned her to Carlos, one of the other night stalkers. He looked confused and said he hadn't seen anyone matching that description. The registers up front were automated, so there was no cashier to ask. I decided to check the security office, but it was locked. The overnight security guard had called in sick. Through the small window, I could see the bank of monitors displaying feeds from around the store. Everything looked normal on the screens I could see. Returning to work, I grabbed a cart full of cleaning supplies to stock in aisle 12. That's when I heard it humming. A low, tuneless humming echoing from somewhere nearby. I followed the sound and found the woman in the pet supplies aisle, running her fingers along the dog food bags while humming that eerie melody. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound professional. "Is there something I can help you find?" She turned slowly, and I noticed her eyes were different colors, one brown, one blue. "I found what I was looking for, little bird. Been watching you fly around all night. Such a busy little bird." My heart started pounding. "Ma'am, if you're not purchasing anything, I need to ask you to." "Purchasing?" She laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "Oh, I'm not purchasing anything. I'm collecting." Before I could respond, she walked away, disappearing around the corner toward the grocery section. I immediately went looking for Carlos, but couldn't find him. I called his name several times, my voice echoing through the empty store. I was getting genuinely scared now. I made my way to the front of the store, thinking I'd call the police if necessary. But as I approached the customer service area, I saw Carlos stocking cigarettes behind the tobacco counter. "Carlos," I called out, relief flooding through me. "Where have you been? There's this weird woman." "What woman?" he interrupted. "I've been here for the past hour. Haven't seen any customers since we locked the doors." "That's impossible. She's been following me around all night." Carlos looked concerned. "Jessica, I've been watching the front entrance. Nobody's come in since 11:45. Are you feeling okay?" I insisted on checking the security footage, so Carlos used his supervisor key to access the office. We rewound the cameras to midnight and watched the feeds from electronics, toys, pet supplies, all the areas where I'd seen her. On every single camera, there was only me, talking to empty air, standing alone in aisles while apparently having conversations with nobody. In one particularly disturbing clip, I was backing away from nothing while looking terrified. "Jessica, you were talking to someone who wasn't there," Carlos said quietly. I stared at the monitors in disbelief. But I saw her. I smelled her. She called me Little Bird. We fast-forwarded through more footage. In every frame, I was completely alone. But then Carlos paused the feed from aisle 12. "Wait, look at this." On the screen, several dog food bags had fallen to the floor in the exact spot where I'd seen the woman running her fingers along them. The bags were clearly visible falling, but there was nothing on camera to explain why. "How do you explain that?" I asked. Carlos shook his head. "I can't." We checked the employee records and found something disturbing. 3 months earlier, a woman named Margaret Henley had died of a heart attack in the store during the night shift. She'd been a customer who frequently came in during overnight hours, often talking to employees for extended periods. The description matched perfectly: gray hair, denim jacket, different colored eyes. According to the incident report, she'd been found in the pet supplies aisle, having collapsed while browsing dog food. The security footage from that night showed her talking to the night stalker on duty, calling him Little Bird repeatedly before she collapsed. I never worked another night shift at that Walmart. When I gave my 2 weeks' notice, the manager, Patricia, wasn't surprised. She mentioned that several night employees had reported similar encounters over the past few months. Always the same woman, always calling people Little Bird, always appearing on security footage as empty spaces where employees seemed to be having conversations with no one. I still shop there during the day sometimes, and I always avoid aisle 12. Last month, I was picking up groceries when I overheard 2 employees talking. One mentioned that the new night stalker had quit after just 3 days, claiming a strange woman kept following him around, calling him Little Bird. Some people say grief can leave an imprint on a place, especially when someone dies unexpectedly. Others think it's just the stress and isolation of night shift work playing tricks on tired minds. But I know what I experienced, and I know Margaret Henley is still walking those aisles, still looking for someone to talk to, still collecting her little birds. The scariest part isn't that she's dead. It's that she doesn't seem to know it. I'm Marcus Thompson, 19 years old, and what happened to me at the Walmart in Springfield, Missouri last November still gives me nightmares. I was home from college for Thanksgiving break, doing some late-night shopping for my mom who needed ingredients for the next day's dinner. The store was staying open until 1 a.m. for the holiday weekend, and I figured 11:30 p.m. would be perfect, late enough to avoid crowds, early enough to get what I needed. Springfield gets pretty quiet after dark, especially in the commercial district where this particular Walmart sits, surrounded by mostly empty strip malls and fast food places. I was looking for cranberry sauce in the canned goods aisle when I first noticed him. A middle-aged man, probably in his 40s, wearing a stained gray hoodie and baggy jeans. He had this scraggly beard and kept scratching at his arms like he had some kind of rash. What caught my attention initially was that he was just standing there, staring at the soup cans like they held the secrets of the universe. I grabbed what I needed and moved on, but I kept running into him throughout the store. In produce, he was examining every single apple in a display, picking them up one by one and holding them to his ear like he was listening for something. In the bread aisle, he was opening loaves and sticking his nose inside the bags. The guy was clearly not right in the head, but Springfield has its share of odd characters, so I didn't think much of it initially. I just tried to shop quickly and get out of there. I was in the electronics section looking at phone chargers when he approached me directly for the first time. "You got nice eyes," he said, standing way too close. His breath smelled like cigarettes and something rotten. "Real nice blue eyes. I've been collecting blue eyes." I stepped back, uncomfortable. Thanks, I guess." You ever think about what it would be like to see through different eyes? I think about it all the time. I got a whole collection at home. Different colors, different shapes. He reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out what looked like a small glass jar. Want to see. I didn't want to see whatever was in that jar, but I couldn't help glancing at it. Inside was what appeared to be several glass marbles in various colors: blue, brown, green, hazel. They looked remarkably realistic, like actual eyes floating in some kind of clear liquid. Those are just marbles, right? I asked, hoping he'd confirm it. He grinned, showing teeth that were either missing or rotted. That's what everyone says at first, but look closer. He shook the jar gently, and the contents moved in a way that made my stomach turn. These ones came from a girl about your age. Real pretty green eyes. She didn't want to give them up, but I convinced her. I backed away quickly. Look, man, I need to go. What's your hurry? We just started talking. I was hoping you might want to contribute to my collection. He unscrewed the lid of the jar, and the smell that wafted out was indescribable, like formaldehyde mixed with decay. I turned and walked rapidly toward the front of the store, my heart pounding. Behind me, I could hear him laughing, a wet, gurgling sound that made my skin crawl. I found a cashier, a teenage girl named Amy according to her name tag, and quickly paid for my items. As she rang me up, I kept glancing toward the electronics section, but didn't see the man anywhere. You okay? Amy asked. You look kind of freaked out. I hesitated, then decided to mention the strange encounter. There's this guy in electronics with a jar of what he claims are real eyes. He's talking about collecting them from people. Amy's face went pale. What did he look like? I described him, and she immediately called for security over the intercom. Within minutes, a security guard named Officer Bradley arrived. Amy quickly explained the situation. We need to find this individual immediately, Bradley said. Can you show me where you saw him? We searched electronics, then expanded to the surrounding aisles. No sign of him anywhere. Bradley checked with the other employees on duty. Only 3 people total, and none of them had seen anyone matching that description. Are you sure about what you saw? Bradley asked. I was getting frustrated. I know what I saw. He had a jar with what looked like human eyes in it. Bradley decided to check the security footage. We went to the small security office near customer service, and he pulled up the cameras from the past hour. We watched the feed from electronics, focusing on the time when I'd had the encounter. On the screen, I could see myself browsing phone chargers. I appeared to be talking to someone, backing away, looking frightened, but there was no one else in the frame. Just me, apparently having a conversation with empty air. This doesn't make sense, I said. He was right there. Bradley fast-forwarded and rewound several times. In every frame, I was alone. But then something caught his attention. Look at this, he said, pausing the video. On the floor where I remembered the man standing, there was a small puddle of some kind of liquid. What's that? We went back to electronics to investigate. Sure enough, there was a small puddle of clear liquid on the floor, right where I remembered the man standing. It had a strange chemical smell, like the odor from the jar. Bradley called the police, who arrived within 15 minutes. Officer Maria Gonzalez took my statement and examined the liquid on the floor. She also requested copies of the security footage. While we were talking, Amy approached us looking shaken. I need to tell you something, she said. About 6 months ago, we had an incident here. A man matching that description was arrested for harassing customers. He kept talking about collecting body parts, specifically eyes. The police found jars of what turned out to be animal eyes preserved in formaldehyde in his car. Officer Gonzalez checked her records. Robert Dale Hutchins. He was charged with disorderly conduct and making terroristic threats. He was supposed to be in county lockup. She made some calls and came back with disturbing news. Hutchins died in jail 3 weeks ago. Apparent suicide. The blood drained from my face. That's impossible. I just talked to him. Officer Gonzalez showed me a photo from Hutchins' arrest record. It was definitely the same man I'd encountered. Same scraggly beard. Same dead eyes. Same stained hoodie. He was obsessed with eyes, she explained. Had some kind of mental illness that made him believe he could see through other people's eyes if he collected them. The animal eyes in his possession were from roadkill and butcher shops. but his stated goal was to graduate to human eyes. The security footage was sent to specialists for analysis. They found several anomalies, temperature variations in the area where I'd seen Hutchins, electromagnetic interference that briefly disrupted the camera, and that unexplained puddle of liquid that tested positive for formaldehyde. I never got a satisfactory explanation for what happened that night. Some people suggested it was stress from college. Others thought it might have been some kind of hallucination brought on by the fluorescent lighting and late hour. But I know what I experienced. Robert Dale Hutchins was there, as real as anyone else, still obsessing over his twisted collection even after death. The formaldehyde puddle was real. The jar was real. The threat was real. I avoid that Walmart now, especially at night. But sometimes, when I'm shopping elsewhere and catch a glimpse of someone in a gray hoodie, my heart starts racing. I find myself checking over my shoulder, making sure no one is getting too close, looking too intently at my eyes. Because somewhere out there, whether in this world or the next, Robert Dale Hutchins is still collecting, still adding to his grotesque jar of stolen sight. And I have the distinct feeling that our encounter was far from over. My name is David Chen, and I worked, the overnight maintenance shift at a Walmart in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I was 24 at the time this happened, putting myself through graduate school by taking whatever jobs paid decent money for night work. The Walmart on Edgewood Road was perfect for that: good pay, minimal supervision, and I could usually get my homework done during slow periods. I'd been working there for about 6 months when the incident occurred in late September. My usual shift was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., handling floor cleaning, restroom maintenance, and general upkeep while the store was closed to customers. There were typically 4 of us working overnight: 2 stalkers, 1 security guard, and me. That particular night, September 23rd, started like any other. I clocked in and began my routine, starting with the bathrooms near the front entrance. The security guard, Jim Patterson, was making his rounds, and the 2 stalkers, Maria Santos and Kevin Wright, were working in grocery and electronics respectively. Around 11:45 p.m., I was mopping the main aisle when I noticed the automatic doors at the front entrance slide open. This wasn't unusual. The sensors were sensitive and would sometimes trigger from cars passing by in the parking lot or even large birds. But what was strange was that they stayed open for several seconds longer than normal, as if someone had actually walked through. I called out to Jim, but he was somewhere in the back of the store and didn't respond. I walked over to check the entrance area, and the doors finally closed. The parking lot outside was mostly empty except for our cars and a few stragglers from the late-night shopping crowd. I went back to mopping, but kept glancing toward the front of the store. About 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps echoing from the electronics section. They were distinctive, a slow, deliberate pace that didn't match the hurried steps of any of my coworkers. "Kevin," I called out. "That you in electronics?" No response. I grabbed my radio and tried to reach him, but got only static. The radios were cheap and unreliable, so this wasn't particularly unusual, but it added to my growing unease. I decided to walk over to electronics to check on Kevin. The store felt different that night. The usual hums and buzzes of refrigeration units and fluorescent lights seemed muted, creating an oppressive silence that made every sound I made seem unnaturally loud. When I reached electronics, Kevin was nowhere to be found. The area looked normal, merchandise neatly arranged. No signs of disturbance. But I noticed something odd. Several video game cases had been moved from their locked display to the counter, as if someone had been examining them. I called Kevin's name again, louder this time. Still no response. I tried the radio once more and managed to reach Maria. "Have you seen Kevin?" I asked. "He was in electronics last I saw him," she replied. "That was maybe half an hour ago." I started to worry. Kevin was reliable and wouldn't just wander off without telling someone. I began searching the store systematically, calling his name and checking every aisle. In the toy section, I found his cart of merchandise abandoned in the middle of an aisle. His clipboard was on the floor next to it, and some action figures had been scattered around like someone had knocked them over in a hurry. That's when I heard it, a sound that made my blood run cold. It was laughing, but not normal laughter. It was high-pitched, almost childlike, but with an edge of menace that made every hair on my body stand up. The sound seemed to be coming from the direction of the grocery section. I grabbed a flashlight from my maintenance cart and headed toward the source of the laughter. The store's lighting was dimmed during overnight hours, creating long shadows between the aisles that seemed to move and shift as I walked. The laughter stopped as soon as I entered the grocery section, replaced by an eerie silence. I called out for Kevin, Maria, anyone, but my voice just echoed back at me. I tried the radio again, nothing but static. I was checking the cereal aisle when I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, flashlight raised, and caught a glimpse of a figure disappearing around the corner at the far end of the aisle. It was too quick to make out details, but it appeared to be wearing dark clothing and moving in an odd, jerky manner. "Hey!" I shouted, running after the figure. "Stop!" I reached the end of the aisle just in time to see the figure duck into the frozen food section. I pursued, my footsteps echoing loudly on the polished floor. When I rounded the corner into frozen foods, I was met with a sight that made me stop dead in my tracks. Kevin was there, but something was wrong. He was standing motionless in front of the ice cream freezer, his back to me, swaying slightly like he was drunk or disoriented. "Kevin? You okay, man?" He didn't respond. I approached cautiously, my flashlight beam illuminating his still form. When I got close enough to see around him, I understood why he wasn't responding. His eyes were wide open, staring blankly at the freezer door, but they were completely white, no pupils, no irises, just solid white. Drool was running down his chin, and his hands were hanging limply at his sides. "Kevin!" I grabbed his shoulder and shook him. He turned toward me, and I nearly screamed. His face was slack, expressionless, like a mannequin. But worse than that, when he opened his mouth to speak, the voice that came out wasn't his. "David," he said in a voice that sounded like multiple people speaking in unison. "We've been waiting for you." I stumbled backward, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Kevin, or whatever was controlling him, took a step toward me, moving in that same jerky, unnatural manner I'd seen from the figure I'd been chasing. "Where's Maria?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Maria is with us now," the thing wearing Kevin's face replied. "Just like Jim. Just like all the others who work the night shift here." I turned and ran. Behind me, I could hear Kevin, or whatever was controlling him, laughing with that same high-pitched, menacing sound I'd heard earlier. But now there were multiple voices laughing, creating a horrible chorus that seemed to follow me through the store. I headed for the front entrance, but the automatic doors wouldn't open. I pushed against them, pulled at them, but they remained firmly sealed. The manual release wasn't working either. I tried calling 911 on my cell phone, but there was no signal. The landline in the customer service area was dead. I was trapped. I could hear them moving through the store, multiple sets of footsteps, the occasional burst of that horrible laughter, and voices calling my name in unison. I hid in the maintenance closet near the back of the store, but I knew it was only a matter of time before they found me. That's when I remembered the emergency exit in the stockroom. It was connected to the fire alarm, but I didn't care. I made a run for it, weaving through aisles while the sounds of pursuit grew closer. I reached the stockroom and slammed through the emergency exit. The alarm began blaring, and I found myself in the loading dock area behind the store. I ran to my car and drove straight to the police station. The cops thought I was having some kind of breakdown, but they agreed to check on the store. When they arrived, they found Kevin, Maria, and Jim all unconscious in various parts of the building. All three were taken to the hospital, where they remained in comas for several days. When they finally woke up, none of them remembered anything about that night. The security footage showed me running around the store apparently alone, but there were several minutes of missing video, just static on all cameras during the period when I encountered the controlled versions of my coworkers. The strangest part was what the police found in the store. In the exact spots where I'd seen Kevin, Maria, and Jim in their possessed states, there were scorch marks on the floor, perfect circles about 3 feet in diameter, as if something intensely hot had been standing there. I never went back to that job. Kevin, Maria, and Jim all quit within a week of returning to work, claiming they felt different and couldn't stand being in the store anymore. Jim mentioned having nightmares about floating in darkness while something else controlled his body. The store hired a new overnight crew, but they had trouble keeping people. Workers would quit after just a few days, claiming they felt like they were being watched, that they could hear voices calling their names, that the automatic doors would open and close on their own. Eventually, the store stopped operating 24 hours and closed overnight. The official reason was cited as operational efficiency. But I know the real reason. Some places hold on to dark things, and that Walmart in Cedar Rapids is definitely one of them. I still live in the area, and sometimes I drive by that store during the day. It looks normal enough with customers going in and out, but I never go inside. Because late at night, when the parking lot is empty and the store is dark, I swear I can sometimes see figures moving around inside the night shift that never ended. Still working, still waiting for new employees to join their eternal crew.